first show in November of 2003. And then, of course, podcasting came out the next year. I've been doing it ever since. My son just turned 25, and he's getting married next week. But because of the online business I created, I was able to homeschool him. I was able to, I did leave my day job in 2006. I had made such a good living online that I'd paid off all my debt and was making more at home than I did going to work. So I turned in my notice and came home full time, was able to homeschool, was able to put family and friends first when the situation called for it, and that continues to this day. I just love what I do.
Yeah, you know, it's awesome. A lot of people hear people say that, and they don't understand how much value there is there, and they also don't understand that there's a lot of work involved, and it's harder than taking on two jobs, because if you have two jobs and you go get to work and you go to another job, they're telling you what you need to do every day, and they pay at the end of it. Doing this yourself, all by yourself in new territory, not only do you have to do it, but you have to educate yourself to do it. And then you have to go through the ups and downs of, oh, that didn't work the way I thought it was going to work. So I want you to explain to business owners, solopreneurs out there, one of the struggles that you learned going through this process. Now that you look back, you probably recognize it differently than at the time it happened. But what were some of your pain points moving forward?
Well, the biggest pain point turned out to be the greatest gift. I didn't have any money to spend. You know, back then you had to spend $70 to get a domain name. So that was a huge expense for me. And you know, getting set up with a web host, I couldn't afford to spend. When I learned about affiliate marketing, and everybody recommended a particular ebook by Rosalind Gardner, and I literally for 6 months I hemmed and hawed about, I just can't spend $50 on this book. There's just no way I can do that. That's taking money out of my child's mouth. But I did eventually spend that $50, and it was probably the best $50 I spent all year, because I learned so much from Rosalind about being an affiliate marketer. But not having any money to spend meant I had to learn how to do things, you know, by scraping through the free content that was available and just testing and trying. And it's so interesting because, you know, starting my internet radio show in 2003, there were no courses. Well, there was one. There was one fella offering a start your own internet radio show course, but it was $2,000. It was so far outside of my realm of possibility that, you know, it was just, might as well have been $1 million. And so I had to teach myself. I had to go to the forums. I had to ask the guys that were doing, like, basement radio stations, how do you do that, you know, and figure out how to do it myself. I call it my greatest gift because I never developed that habit of trying to spend my way to success, which is unfortunately what a lot of people do these days. They think that they can just, like, you know, buy a product and it's going to seep into their soul and make them rich. And it doesn't work. You know, you have to do something.
You know, it's really interesting. When I started doing internet radio in 2008, I had given up a remodel. I got really sick. You know, I suffered from a disease for almost 40 years, but I got really sick. You know, I was in my early 50s, and I had to kind of reinvent myself. And, you know, when I got sick and lost my business and I lost everything, I had no money. One of the biggest blessings that I had in that process was being broke, because I realized, and my wife who works side by side with me, we realized how many things were out there that you could do without, you know, a lot of people spend $1,000 on something and never look at it a second time. So at the end of a year, they spent $20,000, got nothing out of anything except a bunch of things that they've never opened a second time. Learning the way we learned is exactly the same thing you're saying. I didn't know how to do internet radio. I was hoping that it would stay on long enough while I was talking. We now train people how to host their own radio shows. So we produce them for people around the world. So what happened was there was a desperate need to build revenue and create a way to do it, and the tools are right in front of everyone all the time, but yet we're really good at coming up with some good excuses why we can't do it. So I find that interesting that I have the same thankfulness for not having enough money to buy my way in, because I would still be on a slower learning track. This is kind of the fast track of learning when you're doing it, because, today it's a lot easier. We can get a WordPress site for free.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, I think that you can get a domain name, I don't know, what is it, $12?
Yep.
So, it's a lot easier today. So I want to move to my next question, and I want to tell people solosmarts.com. solosmarts.com is your website. It has a bunch of stuff in it. And one of the things I want people to see is there's a tab that's favorite tools. Okay? So it's very helpful. You're providing information for people to learn how to do different things and the tools that are out there. I think that's awesome. I think it's smart because you're addressing your community with things that they could use, but most of them don't want to know how to use it. They want to know who they can hire. And you're giving them an opportunity to see what it is that's out there. Now, can they hire to use these certain tools?
Can they hire me to use the tools?
Ma'am.
Well, I'm a coach, so I don't provide services. That would be something that they'd hire a virtual assistant for. But they can hire me to help them choose the right tools and get them implementing in their business.
Right. So you have a lot of stuff on your website that's very helpful, and people should be going there. solosmarts.com. There's free gift. You can, I love a bright, shiny object management audio and printable worksheets. I like the title there. People can listen to you on Stitcher, iTunes. When is your show? Is it a live show? Are you still doing live shows, or is it all podcast recorded?
Yeah, it's 100% pre-recorded, and I'm a time-shifted audio girl.
Okay.
All the way.
Now, so how do you have guests on there? Is it at workshops? How do people become a guest on your show?
Yeah, it's a mix. Sometimes I do the show on my own when I've got something, on my chest to chat about. And but I would say probably 3/4 of the time I have guests. I like to interview solopreneurs, of course, and it's a little hidden. But if you go to SoloSmarts and hover over the About Kelly link, it'll show guest inquiry. And
I got it. Yeah, there's a form there that they can fill out. That's awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
And so, Kelly, I want to quiz you on something. When I talk to people about doing radio shows, and just so everyone out there knows, internet radio becomes a podcast 3 seconds after it's live. So we're talking about kind of the same thing. It's just that one can be done a little bit more conveniently than the other. So if you're busy weekly, you don't want to schedule a certain thing. But it's the same platform. It's used for the same marketing model. And what you're doing is you interview solopreneurs, and your target is solopreneurs. So it's a great way to drive traffic to a community for one, either to bring in education or to be able to help provide education, to gain as a resource. How do you feel as though doing your shows or being a podcaster now contributes to the growth in your business?
Oh, it's everything. I've always approached my business as that I'm serving a community, and I want to celebrate the best of the community, and I do that with my interviews. You're not on my show if I don't think you're pretty cool. So I'm serving them by highlighting them. I'm serving them by introducing them to cool people and providing great free information. Same with my blog and my podcast. They just go hand in hand. Most of my clients hire me because they've listened to the podcast or read the blog, and then they ended up, jumping onto the list community for one of the freebies I give away, and they buy an information product and end up working with me as a coach. And the podcast, it's always been that way. The podcast from the earliest days has always been a great funnel for me for sales and clients.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they know me,
Right. Exactly right. And so that's why, and I asked that question because I'm always telling people, of course, Tough Talk, that's what we do, right? But you don't have to do it through us. You can go out there and you can, I think Blog Talk still has a free 30-minute day thing, and they do everything for you as well. So, the opportunity's there if you really take notice and look at that. Do you coach people on that process? Do you explain to them the value that they can get from that tool as a podcaster or a radio show host?
Yeah. I have in the past. I used to teach a podcasting course. It was actually the first information product I ever created was Shoestring Radio, because everyone wanted me to share how I was doing it. I still teach podcasting. I've always said you'll be podcasting sooner or later, and
right.
I still believe that. In one way or another, you're going to be podcasting because it's just that important.
Well, I know that John Dumas came out and he made millions of dollars with the podcasting, and I think one of the things that people have to understand out there is the reality of it, okay? Not everybody's going to make millions of dollars out of it, but you can increase everything that you have with that tool. It's a really good marketing tool which creates the credibility that you need for people to say, hey, Kelly, what do I have to do to work with you? So, and that's the battle, is not having to try to talk people into working with you, getting them to ask you how they can work with you. So,
right. Yeah. People ask, how do you monetize a podcast? And that's just kind of a silly question. It's content marketing. You don't monetize your content. Your content draws people to what you have to sell.
Right.
It's just a little different attitude, I guess.
Right, and I have that sales call every day, 3-4 times a day. People want to do radio. They don't have time. We do everything for them. They show up like Oprah for an hour and hang up. First question is, how do they monetize? How do they make money out of it? What's the ROI? And I tell them, I don't know, what kind of systems do you have in place? You know, and I ask them, what is it you're trying to do? If you're a speaker and you travel all across the country, you don't have time and you're tired of traveling, this is one way of doing it. If you're an author, you're trying to sell a book or a program, what do you have set up where people can come and purchase from you? This is just a traffic driver. This is just a credibility. This is like you said, it's content. And then what can you do with that content to repurpose it into products? So there's a whole bunch of stuff, but most of the time people ask that question, like you said, how do you monetize from it? You know, and that's a sign that they need to be coached.
Yep.
So,
I tell people, if you have smarts, I can help you make money from them. If you're interested in creating digital products, running membership sites, that's the very best client for me, someone who has an area of smarts and I can help them leverage it, to create the income plan. And then the content marketing just draws them in